Hi guys, come back to the dark frequency, like subscribe or comment kar dena. So today we're diving into a deeply unsettling account that perfectly illustrates the truly terrifying consequences of the unknown. We're going to be talking about 27-year-old Ivana. She's a housewife and she lives a very simple, very isolated life way up in the remote hills. Now, because her husband frequently travels for work and her children are away studying, Ivana has actually grown completely accustomed to the silence. She spends her nights entirely alone in this sprawling, quiet area, perfectly content with the isolation. It's peaceful, you know? But on one particular night, that serene silence gets shattered in a way that just completely defies all logic.
I really want you to picture the scene for a second. It is pitch black outside. The hills are dead silent. I mean, there is not a soul around for miles. And then, the doorbell rings. It is exactly 12:30 a.m. Now, in this isolated mountainous region, nobody visits anyone this late at night. There's just no reason for it. Ivana's peaceful, quiet evening is abruptly shattered by this harsh, jarring sound echoing through the house. Completely startled, she walks up to the main door. Her heart is literally pounding in her chest, and she cautiously peers out through the mesh of the gate, trying to see into the darkness.
And standing right there at the gate is a little girl. But immediately you can tell something is deeply, deeply wrong. The child is wearing these ragged, torn clothes and her hair is wildly disheveled and messy, like she's been wandering for days. In her small hands, she's holding up this empty plastic bottle. And as Ivana watches in total shock, the girl just starts to weep bitterly. She's begging for water, claiming she hasn't taken a single sip since the morning. Honestly, it's a bizarre, heartbreaking, and inherently terrifying moment all rolled into one.
Seeing a small child crying in the dead of night like that, well, Ivana's fear quickly turns into pity. I mean, it's just a kid, right? So she slightly opens the door, takes the empty plastic bottle from the girl, and tells her to just wait right there on the porch while she runs inside to fill it. But when she returns with the water just a few moments later, the porch is completely empty. The little girl has literally vanished into thin air. Ivana steps out, she looks all around the dark yard, but there is absolutely no sign of her. Finding the whole thing incredibly eerie, but also feeling this overwhelming wave of exhaustion, she shrugs it off, leaves the bottle outside the gate just in case, goes back to her bedroom and falls into a deep sleep. But as you'll see, the nightmare is really just beginning.
Suddenly, the silence of the deep night is utterly shattered. Ivana rose over in her sleep and her foot hit something solid under the covers. Her eyes snap open. She looks right beside her and her blood runs completely cold. Lying right next to her, underneath her own blankets, is that exact same ragged little girl. But guys, she isn't crying anymore. She is staring right into Ivana's eyes and she's laughing. It's this maniacal, completely unhinged, terrifying giggle.
अब इतनी स्टोरी देख ही ली है तो मतलब आपको स्टोरी पसंद आ रही है तो प्लीज सब्सक्राइब और लाइक भी कर देना शुक्रिया So Ivana's initial shock violently shifts into pure blinding rage. Like how on earth did this trespasser get inside her locked house? Ivana jumps out of bed, screaming angrily at the intruder and begins aggressively chasing her down the hallway. The little girl sprints toward the kitchen, laughing hysterically the entire way. It's maddening. But when Ivana storms into the kitchen right behind her, it is completely empty. The girl is gone again. Ivana starts furiously ripping open every single cabinet, just trying to find where this kid is hiding.
But then, absolute chaos erupts. The kitchen lights start violently flickering on and off. Every single cabinet door flings open and starts slamming shut with these deafening bangs. Pots, pans, and utensils are practically raining down from the shelves in a deadly shower. A heavy, sharp knife falls and nearly stabs Ivana. She is completely frozen in shock, absolutely unable to move a muscle. And then, just as the slamming stops, a disgusting, thick, pitch-black water begins rapidly bubbling and rising up from the kitchen sink drain.
Right in the middle of this absolute sensory overload, Ivana hears that maniacal laughter right behind her again. She spins around and there is the girl, literally clapping and laughing at her absolute terror. Ivana steps forward to confront her, but suddenly, this invisible, massive force violently yanks her by the back of her head. Her hair is forcefully dragged straight down into the sink's drain, tangling deep inside the metal pipes. Her face is plunged forcefully into that rising, choking, putrid black water. She can't breathe. She is literally being drowned in her own kitchen sink by an unseen entity.
Ivana is frantically thrashing around. She's pushing with all of her might against the countertops just to pry herself away from the sink. In a final, desperate burst of adrenaline, she rips herself backward, quite literally tearing chunks of her own hair out of her scalp to escape the drain's grip. Gasping for air and coughing up this dark water, she stumbles backward.
immediately grabs her phone and calls her husband in absolute hysterics. Hearing the sheer panic in her voice, he tells her one thing: drop everything and flee to the neighbor's house immediately. Do not wait. But the very second she hangs up that phone, the entire house goes dead silent. The kind of silence that rings in your ears. And then, echoing from the walls, she hears it. A slow, incredibly eerie, sing-song voice starts to chant. Machli jalki rani hai, jivan uska pani hai, hat lagaloge to dar jayegi, bahar nikaloge to mar jayegi. It is the classic innocent nursery rhyme about a fish queen of the water who dies when taken out. But here, it is completely twisted, corrupted, and chanted by this demonic entity echoing through her home specifically to taunt her.
And now we reach the absolute climax of this terrifying attack. The second that twisted nursery rhyme finishes, the little girl materializes right in front of Ivana, out of thin air. But this time, there is no laughing, she isn't running away, the entity lunges forward, its freezing cold hands wrapping tightly around Ivana's throat, and it brutally begins to choke the absolute life out of her. Ivana is pinned, she's utterly cornered, gasping desperately for air as her vision starts to go completely black.
Right as Ivana is losing consciousness, loud, frantic banging echoes from the front door. The neighbors, having heard her horrifying, muffled screams echoing through the hills, have finally arrived. A well-built neighbor violently smashes the front door right off its hinges, bursting into the house. And in a literal flash, the ghost completely vanishes. The neighbors rush in to find Ivana collapsed on the floor, violently coughing, with these dark, angry red marks deeply bruising her neck where the entity's hands had just been. So we have to ask, why on earth did this happen to her? Well, it turns out, a week prior on a family trip, Ivana had been out walking and accidentally stepped on a strange, ornate ring lying in the dirt. Completely unthinkingly, just out of curiosity, she picked it up and took it home. The very next morning, that ring had mysteriously vanished from her belongings. She didn't think much of it at the time, but she had unwittingly brought a deeply cursed object into her sanctuary, tethering this malevolent, vengeful spirit directly to her life and her home. Which brings us to the real core concept of this entire story, Anjani Bhul. This translates to an unintentional mistake or an error. After that horrifying near-death experience, Ivana's family didn't take any chances. They immediately brought in experts to perform a profound purification ritual, cleaning the house and successfully banishing the spirit forever. But, the psychological scar is permanent. Even today, Ivana goes to sleep every single night specifically praying for forgiveness for any Anjani Bhul. She is absolutely terrified of what another tiny, unknown mistake could inadvertently invite back into her life.
It really leaves us with a truly chilling final thought to chew on. What unknown mistakes have you brought into your home? Have you ever picked up something you probably shouldn't have, completely unaware of the unseen energy attached to it?
तो आज की स्टोरी यहाँ ही ख़त्म होती है। प्लीज़ वीडियो को लाइक, सब्सक्राइब, शेयर और कमेंट कर देना। मिलते हैं नेक्स्ट स्टोरी में, तब तक के लिए बाय, अपना ख्याल रखना।